We're going to go back to Good Friday. I know I'm recording these a little bit out of order. It's the best that I can do with the time that I have. So for Good Friday in Year A, we'll look at Hebrews, a couple verses in chapter 4 and a couple verses in chapter 5. It's talking about Jesus as the high priest. The interesting thing about Jesus, when he ends the sacrificial system that was required in Judaism in order for the people to have their sins forgiven, he is both the priest and the sacrifice, which is impossible. How can the priest sacrifice himself? Well, he can't until Jesus does it. And so here at the end of verse 4, it's talking about Jesus as our great high priest. He's passed through the heavens. The Gospel of John kind of talks about this. Jesus makes a figure U like that. He starts in the heavens, he descends to earth, and he ascends back into heaven. It's the cosmic arc of Jesus's journey for our salvation. So our priest has passed through the heavens. He came down and then he came back up. There's nothing in heaven or on earth that doesn't submit to him or fulfill his purpose. Let us hold fast our confession. We confess, that means we believe it to be true, and we claim out loud that Jesus is the Son of God. It doesn't mean, oh, I confess I've done something wrong. There's two kinds of confession. This one here is we're saying what's true, that Jesus is God's Son, and we need to hold fast to that. Why? It's under threat all the time. The enemy wants us to stop confessing that Jesus is the Christ. John wrote his gospel that said, "These things are written that you may believe that Jesus is the Christ, the Son of the living God, and in believing you may have life." The enemy wants to take that from us. So we need to hold fast to our confession. How? Being in the Word, daily scripture reading, weekly worship, meeting with other believers, meditating on the Word, hiding it in our heart, seeking Spirit to ask Him what He wants us to do, what He wants us to learn, how He wants us to walk. So we hold fast to our confession. We don't give the devil an opportunity to take away our identity as members of Christ. We don't have a high priest who can't sympathize with us. In Judaism, there were a whole bunch of high priests throughout the millennia that preceded Christ, who were not great. They got really power trippy about being the high priest, and felt like the people were just really beneath them. And we see this especially in the Gospels when the chief priests, the scribes, the teachers, the law, the Pharisees are not caring for the sheep who are entrusted to them. And Jesus calls them out on this all the time. It wasn't that started in the time of Christ. It had been going on for a really long time. So for the writer of Hebrews here to say, our high priest, he can sympathize with our weaknesses. Why? Because Christ took on our flesh. Is he fully God? Yes. Is he fully human? Yes. Both at the same time. Is that possible? No. It's a mystery. We don't understand all of how that worked or what it implied in every single instance. But he would have had, physical pain. He would have had emotions. He would have had disappointments, fears, anxieties, because all of those are common to human nature. And he had a full, real, true human nature. He wasn't sort of just occupying a body as God. He was full human, not just God with skin on, but full human and full God. So he absolutely sympathizes with us, in contrast to a lot of the high priests who didn't and wouldn't. He's been tempted in all things as we are, yet without sin. And we read that from Matthew just a few weeks ago. On the first Sunday of Lent. He experienced temptation too, and the temptations were real. They weren't fake. It wasn't staged. It wasn't like he was somehow not susceptible to temptation. It's just that he was able to overcome it because he is one with the Father. He is the Father. But that doesn't make the temptations any less tempting. So verse 16 here in chapter 4, let us draw near with confidence to the throne of grace. This is super important because I think so many times we feel like, oh, well, I can't go to God with that. Oh, well, I've already bothered God with that a number of times. Oh, God has more important things to do than deal with whatever it is that I want, need, am thinking about, whatever. This says, draw near with confidence to the throne of grace. We can go to him boldly because our high priest, Jesus, knows exactly what we're dealing with. He was tempted. He felt everything that we felt. He experienced everything that we experience. And so that enables us to go boldly. When we had read the story of, was it Exodus 11? Where was that? No, Exodus 14. No, that's not right. Well, now I've lost it. I don't remember. One of the previous weeks when we read about Moses getting called to go into the presence of the Lord, but the people, they were not allowed to go boldly before the throne of grace. They couldn't even approach it at all in any kind of condition. Jesus coming to earth changes that, and we have access now, and not just permission, but permission to draw near with confidence. We're not going to get burned up. We're not going to get zapped. Everything is different. Christ makes this enormous difference for us because he wants so desperately to be close to us. So he came to us first so that we have a way to draw near to him and to be really confident in that, that we may receive mercy and find grace to help in time of need. That's for us. Who of us can't see ourselves there? We need to receive his mercy. We need to find grace. We need help in our time of need. And he says, y'all come on. Because our high priest was Christ, we have access to God anytime we need for whatever we need with confidence. We don't have to be afraid or feel like we couldn't possibly. I say this sometimes to people, if they're grieving or if they're going through a really hard time or if they're super stressed out, they're like, oh, I can't go to church. I have too much going on, or I can't really keep it together. I'm still such a mess. I'm like, no, you need to go to worship. We have to draw near with confidence. The lie is that, on the other Sundays we do have it together and we, there's not a lot going on right now, so I can manage to get to church. That's not what he wants. He wants us to draw near to him no matter what, and not to make up excuses for why we shouldn't draw near to him. He says, come with confidence. Jesus is the high priest that enables us to do that. Moving on to the verses then from chapter 5, in the days of his flesh, he offered up prayers and supplications with loud crying and tears to the one able to save him from death. And that's talking about Jesus in the Garden of Gethsemane on the night before he died. He asked not to have to do that. If he had just been God kind of occupying a body, it wouldn't have been a big deal because he wouldn't have actually suffered. But he knew what was coming, and he knew how much it was going to hurt and the suffering that he would endure. And he asked God to not have to do that. Although he was a son, he learned obedience from the things which he suffered. And this is how we learn obedience also. When we suffer, it teaches us, do things God's way. Don't pick your own way. That's the way of suffering. Why? Because when we choose ourselves over God, the enemy uses that to tear us away from God and to cause untold suffering. Now, not every suffering is a result of a consequence of our sin. Don't mistake me there. But obedience is a way of it's a means of protection. Jesus had to learn the way of obedience. He had to submit to his Father. Is he perfect? Yes. Is he God? Yes. But he was still human. Like I said, this doesn't make sense. We have to hold two things together at the same time that can't possibly be held together, and our human brains can't figure that out. But so Jesus learned obedience. He learned to submit his will to the Father. Why? So that we would learn how to submit our will to the Father. He doesn't ask us to do anything that he hasn't already done. And so this is really important also to think about on Good Friday as we remember Jesus going to the cross. Where do we need to go to the cross? Maybe we're not any of us likely to be crucified, but where do we need to die to something so that Christ can resurrect something in us that isn't now? Where is something that needs to be overturned and completely made new? Having been made perfect, he became to all those who obey him the source of eternal life, the source of eternal salvation. There's a connection between obedience and protection. There's a connection between obedience and salvation. We do not earn our salvation. He just gives it to us. But he expects that we will learn from him and that we will surrender to him. And the more we do that, the more of eternal salvation we will be able to experience here now. The sweetness of walking with him and surrendering to him brings heaven here now. And so through his obedience, I cannot believe how many mosquitoes are out here right now. March 9th, mosquitoes, unbelievable. Sorry. Well, now I just lost my train of thought. Great. He became to all those who obey him the source of eternal salvation. On Good Friday, we're watching Jesus go to the cross, and we're asking him, teach me to obey, so that your salvation can be made manifest in my heart, and so that I can bring eternal salvation, a taste of that, to the people that I encounter, so that others can also experience him as their high priest, who understands what they're going through, who wants them to come to his throne with confidence in their time of need. We're here as the church to do his work, and his work means that we have to obey him. So what can we ask him today on Good Friday that we need to surrender and allow him to teach us some more obedience about?